G2 Kopaka, easily one of the best of the first wave of new sets from 2015. Let's talk about all the stuff that makes him awesome and show you a couple ways that you can use the pieces that come in this set to make your own wonderful LEGO creations. We'll even check out a couple revamps of this character as well, which will hopefully inspire you. So let's check it out. So the second generation for Kopaka saw a version with a lot of gold armor. Now, most of the time, in like generation 1 versions of Kopaka, he did have armor, but if he did, it was silver. So I really love that they decided to try something new for the character. And honestly, I think it really paid off. I think it looks lovely. So some of this gold armor included this fantastic gold torso armor piece. I actually really love the printing on this piece. Some of the lines here, they give it the sense that Kopaka's been a little battle damaged after lots of fights. I think it's a very nice touch. Now, if you wanted to use this on a mock, maybe you could do something like Patrick Biggs has done here on his mock Gully Golden Armor Edition. Now, Gully G2 actually looks really incredible with a lot of gold and azure in her color scheme. And including this piece here for her torso armor, that was incredibly smart. I mean, the printing here, it has a nice amount of azure on it, so it just perfectly blends with everything else in this color scheme. Yeah, I'd even argue this torso piece looks better on this mock than it does on Kopaka himself. It still looks really good on Kopaka, mind you, but I think this is the perfect use for this piece. Another mock that uses this piece is built by Forge of Ataka. So I believe this is a Turaga Takanuva mock. It didn't quite say on the description, but I believe that's what it is. And if we look at the shoulders, these pieces have been used on both sides. Now we've also got this very lovely image here that showcases some lovely trans light blue CCBS bones all throughout the limbs on this mock. And those perfectly complement these shoulders here. It kind of gives it this effect that there's like magic coursing through their body. What a good use for that piece. It ties in so well. So back to the set, it combines that torso piece with some really bulky looking shoulders, and it gives him this really strong frame. Now it does feel a little bit different to his like Mutter form, for example, which was a little bit more kind of like on the skinnier side. But I like the bulkiness of these newer shoulders. It reminds me of the kind of like fur pelt coats that you see on people who live in more like colder climates, especially in like medieval style storylines. I don't know if that was the intention here, but I get those vibes. So if you wanted to use these shoulder armor pieces on your own creations, I mean honestly using them as shoulder armor like we see on Kopaka, that's pretty perfect. Or you could just use one of these pieces and use it as torso armor, much like Eclipse Caller has done here on Shattered Knight. So if we zoom into the torso here, we can see that there is in fact one of these pieces here. It's kind of embedded into this design. Now I like how this looks, and the fact that this piece has a lot of different connection points, all those bars on the front, the pinhole connections up top. It allows you to just like further customize this piece and put all sorts of other additions and details that really make the mock look pretty stunning. It's a very good inclusion if you're working on armor designs. This set does come with two very different weapons for Kopaka. So G1 saw Kopaka with a sword and a shield. He also came with a slightly different shield and this nice double-sided blade which could be converted into ice skates. Or of course he also had his blaster. Now he's still got himself a shield here. This one's a lot larger and has a bit of a different look to it. Even some nice ice pieces on it, I love that. And then now he has a large spear. Now, I like that both of the weapons, they feel fairly different for this character. The shield, for example, it offers a nice subtle callback to the original shield, but it still feels very fresh and very different. And this spear, that's something we've never seen on the character. And I love that they did this for Kopaka. It offers enough room to feel like the classic Kopaka sets, but it takes steps in a new direction so that it feels exciting and new. That was one of my favorite things about G2 Bionicle. They were similar enough to the originals so that the old classic kids, they felt a little bit of nostalgia, but it also offered enough new stuff so that a new generation could feel a nice level of personal attachment to them. And that way it didn't feel like the exact same thing, just recycled and put back on the shelves. So yeah, the pieces that make up Kopaka's shield, they're wonderful. They can even be attached together like this, forming a kind of shield or a board, or they can be separated. And I guess as a bit of a throwback to his Nuva form, this shield can either be a shield, or it can be converted into ice skates or ice shoes. I guess they're more shoes than skates, but hey, that's really clever. So let's say we wanted to use these pieces in our own mocks. Well, Ron Folkers, he reimagines the classic Vaki character, this one specifically, but instead of using the silver weapons that we see here on the set, he's using these parts, and I think that's a very nice alternative. The hollow space in the middle of these pieces, it allows you to really personalize it a little bit more and add unique touches that help complement the rest of the build. Max Howell did a similar thing here on his mock. However, with this hollowed out area, he's completely filled it up with all sorts of white system bricks. That way it's all like kind of smooth and seamless. Now, also, seeing this piece in this context, taking a look at the edges, it almost looks like the blades on a chainsaw, which, it makes sense to have a chainsaw in an icier climate to cut through some of that really thick ice. It's funny, in this context, that actually feels way more appropriate as an ice-themed weapon, even more so than it did on Kopaka. Now, I did briefly mention before that you could put these two pieces together and make a board. Here's a mock by Patrick Biggs that reimagines Toa Lacan, and that's exactly what's happening here with his board. So why not do the same? Maybe you could convert this into a snowboard for one of your Toa of Ice mocks. Kopaka's leg design, it's rather bulky. Honestly, I feel like it's a little too bulky. Having the leg armor almost reach the end of his toes there, it's a little bit unrealistic and just goes out a little bit too far. Still, it's not the end of the world. And hey, this leg design does use this really cool white armor piece. I think this is a great part, and you get 4 of them in this set. Turaga Maxwell, he uses them here on his Toa of Lightning. I think this is just a great example of how nice these pieces can look when you do integrate them onto your creations. Plus, it's a really easy piece to integrate because it just very easily attaches onto your typical CCBS armor pieces. So yeah, quick, easy, clean, and it looks great. That's a helpful piece in my books. I also love how Typhoon, Toa of Storms, is using this piece here on his self-mock. Placing these two side by side on this leg design, well, it does look pretty good. So it's a good thing that you get 4 of this piece in this set, and it'd be pretty easy to replicate this. Kopaka also has a cool gear function here that allows for some nice fluid movement of his spear. I still think the gear functions on the G2 Bionicle sets were debatably some of the best. The movement's just very seamless, and it's really fun to play with. Oh yeah, and Kopaka's weapon, it comes with 2 of these 1x2 lift arm pieces in black. Era Okononen uses this piece on a mock called Resist Boisterous 4. So if we zoom in on the rider of the bike here, we can see that the shoulder connection uses 2 of these lift arm pieces in red. These are then linked onto this T-bar piece in black, and you got yourself a nice posable elbow joint. It is a rather simple connection, but it gets the job done and it looks lovely. So yeah, always good to get a couple extra of these pieces in a set. And not for nothing, this mock is sensational. Ero is a master of character design. Kopaka and every single other Toa in the first wave of G2 sets, they all come with a little skull spider. The idea is that Kopaka fights them, but if he's not careful, they could possess him, take his mask off, and corrupt him. Now, I love that idea. Despite the small size of these creatures, it's great that every single set immediately gives you the dynamic of a good guy versus a bad guy. You don't have to go out and buy the other bad guy set so you can have the two fight each other. No, there's still a lot of good play opportunities even if you just bought one set. Now, if you want to use this mask in your own mocks, you could do what Dylan Meaves did here on this Culta Kai mock. Now, I mean, this mock itself is incredible, but if we zoom in a little bit on the knees, we can see 2 of these masks used as knee armor. So hey, knee pads, that's one way you could use this piece. Or do what Dylan did here on this mock and use this piece for some sweet torso armor. So he's used the dark blue variant of this piece, but regardless, you could easily rebuild something similar in silver. I think it's a great design. And then the final way you could use this piece is like Patrick Biggs did here. I mean, heck, this is supposed to be used as a mask, so why not use it as one? And since this is meant to be a version of Tahu, why not build an infected character that has this mask on their head? It's a good look. The skull spiders also have claws that attach onto this mask. And if we wanted to use them in a mock, maybe you could do what Joxon did here. It's a fairly stock standard design, just using claws as clawed fingers, but it does look really good. And sometimes the simple option is the best one. Or if you want to take things up a notch, you could use them as horns or antlers like he did here on this mock. The way Joxon connected them is technically an illegal connection. There's a lot of stress being put on these parts, but still, it looks nice, so that's all good. And finally, Joxon also used them here to create this awesome bust. So yeah, head spikes, using them to shape the eyes, also using them as a thing to shape the mouth. It all looks great. This piece has so many different uses. Additionally, Kopaka comes with a white mask and a lovely gold variant of the mask as well. What's great is that both of these masks look awesome on this character. I especially love that the gold mask complements all the other gold armor as well. Matt Goldberg uses this gold mask on a mock, and this is a bit of a fun one because it's swapping the body designs for Kopaka and Pahatu and seeing what they would look like on the opposite character. Now I like this because Kopaka's body is using pieces that don't really appear to come on this set. So hey, why not take this spare golden mask that you get and use it for the face of an entirely different build? Like we see here, it looks pretty good. Now the headpiece under this mask, it's one of the best looking headpieces. Now you can remove the eye from their head and actually you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. Joxon uses these for an interesting eye design. Yeah, adding some striking yellow and red pupils just underneath this eye, it creates such a vibrant and prominent design. It's fun, isn't it? It's perfect for a creepy crawly bug. So that's how you can use the pieces that come in this set, but what if you want to revamp this character? Well, here's some inspiration and ideas to help you do that. I really like this first revamp here by G2 Builds. So I can see elements of Kopaka Nuva in this mock. They're certainly taking notes from the silver in his color scheme, but also there's a similar amount of smoothness to his armor, and he's got a shield as well. It makes sense. But I don't know, this larger broadsword, all of this armor, it does give off a sort of like strong paladin knight look. And I would say that's a fairly different approach for the character, but one that fits him very nicely. Yeah, I really like how this revamp explores new territory for this character. It all feels very in line with both the character and also feels in line with what the set was doing. Now, I do really like this armor design, especially this waist area here. How it's using some of these system curved slope pieces like this. It reminds me of other depictions of paladins in knight armor, like this one here. The waist coat that we're seeing here, it looks fairly similar to how Kopaka looks. The broad shoulders are brilliant as well, and using some system dish pieces that sort of continue the same vibes that we see on the smooth areas of the armor, specifically on the chest. That's so cool. Yeah, every section of this mock, it maintains a brilliant amount of sleekness and an incredible amount of consistency. It's all done so well. Now another revamp here, this one is built by Mathureneth, and this one takes the G2 mask but gives it to a body design that looks pretty similar to how the original version of Kopaka looked. There's something very pleasing about seeing that newer version of the mask being put on an older looking body design. It's a nice blending of old and new, and it's just very pleasing to me. I mean, also using like modern pieces to perfectly recreate the colors and the rough look of Kopaka G1, that's nice. And hey, this way too you can give him knee and elbow articulation, which the original one didn't have. But this revamp, it can have that. It feels like a bit of a theme of this video and this toy to be blending the old and the new together. So it seems only fitting to build a version that embodies that. So there you go, that's why Kopaka in any form is wonderful, but the G2 version, well, it's an incredible parts pack and a beautiful set. Be sure to check the links in the description below and see more from the builders that I featured today. Otherwise, have a fantastic day. Happy building, and bye for now.